What is going on? Listen, in the driveway today, doing a little upgrade into my rear seat delete on my Jeep Gladiator. If you haven't seen how this rear seat delete goes down, how it sets up, what was in there before, check out the video. I'll put at the end. I'll leave one in the description. Check it out so you can see what context we're building this into. Alrighty, so after years of using the same power box, I got an additional battery to try to spruce it up a little bit. I just needed way more power than I was carrying around. And at the same time, I've been through several fridges and just not really finding, the perfect combination. And after years of being out on the road or light camping or just road tripping, I decided to get a few new things and, see how they play out in the back of the truck. Let's talk about where we started. Let's start out with this little itty bitty power box I had. Now, plenty of output for running anything I was using, just not enough watt hours, to be more advanced. I was fine running one of the fridges, but as soon as I started getting into trying to rock air conditioners, bringing satellite dishes, diesel heaters, things like that, that I just needed more power overnight for, it just couldn't hold. So we went to this Bluetti Elite 200. Plenty of power, over 2,000 watt hours, 2,600 watts. And like I said, I'm not necessarily needed any kind of peak power. I just needed longer. Smoking deal for this unit right here and this solar panel, 200 watts. I just store it right up there in my loft. But then again, this thing came with some situations. All right, so the EcoFlow had a deal where you could go into the BIOS with your app and you could adjust how much power you wanted it to pull. Normally it would pull like 600 watts, but you could make a setting where it would only pull 100 watts. And that was great for being able to plug it directly into the 110 that I have here in the back of my truck. Up to 400 watt output on that, so not an issue. So once I got the Bluetti, that is a problem with that machine. Nowhere in there can you adjust what's incoming. Once you plug it in, it takes as much as it can from a 110 plug. Which runs up over 1,000 watts charging. All right, so with Bluetti, there's a couple of solutions. You can run it off of 12 volt and you can plug it into your cigarette lighter and it charges at about 100 watts. Or you can get a box that you hook directly to your battery that will supercharge your Bluetti. I think it's 500 or 600 watts with no issues. You just have to have a small investment on that. So the solution I was using was I have an adapter that actually came with that original IceCo. And it plugs into my 110 in the back of my truck, but then has a 12 volt output that's at about 100 and 110 watts. So it was able to kind of mediate what was going on in there. All right, so last month I got a cooler and a little battery pack from Setpower that we're going to install in the truck now. And the reason why, partially, is one of the units is going to solve one of my problems. This little unit right here. So this is just a little individual battery, 216 watt hours. It does 12 volt in, and you can also plug this to a 110 socket. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this instead of that adapter as my pass-through. And when I'm not using it, I will be able to grab this out of the truck, take it with me, because this thing is handy to use in any occasion where you bring it with you, it sticks to the truck, various places you can use this. All right, let's talk about how the scenario works in here. On the other side over there is the plug that's going to get you into shore power. And I use, if you haven't got one of these, you really should check them out for overlanding and camping. It's just a reel that has plugs in the top that I use. So anyways, it's plugged in when I'm on shore power. And like I said, this can run over 1,000 watts charging. It's unfettered. I have no way. If you know a way to change this to get it to suck lower power so that I can run it through the truck, let me know in the comments, because I just couldn't figure it out. But anyway, so it's on there. So then you can run through the DC solar input. You can run it off a 12 volt plug. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this right in this unit right here. And then this unit right here is plugged in to my truck converter. And then we're just going to plug that in right there. And then what this will do is it will act as the go-between so that this only takes in 100 watts. And so I'm only using this setup when I'm driving, because I will plug in my solar panels to this part once I get to where I'm going. And if I'm at shore power, I'm going to be plugged into this part. So this unit right here is only going to be in use you know, while we're driving on the road. So if I get to a location and I feel like I want to bring some power with me, anything like that, bring this into my tent, do some charging out to the table. Sometimes I'll bring a smaller unit like this to my diesel heater or something like that, you know. You just unplug it, and then this comes right out with you. All right, so after looking through what I had for coolers and what's online for coolers, you know, this Setpower DT45 is gonna be pretty dialed in for what I'm needing. One of the things I like the most is this display being right here on the front. A lot of my other ones, they're on the end cap, and this end cap gets buried up against the cabinets that are in the back seat of my truck. You know, it's on one side or the other. What I also like is the dual situation on this. If I'm out and about and I just am gonna be solo and it's gonna be short, I only fire up this small piece. Now this dial down here allows you to turn on one side or the other, or both. Either one's a fridge, either one's a freezer. So I only will use this small piece right here, using this bigger spot over here for my dry storage. All right, like I talk about in the main video for this, it just has smooth sides, no handles to break off. But what they do is they give you a little bracket that's gonna slide over this and give you a place to loop your straps to. And essentially you just back these out slightly, enough to give you room to slide that over. Tighten her back down. All right, here's one of the things I like about this installation. These little things just screw on. So they have the ability to be, you know, at a cant. So I'm strapping this down, and you can see in the back, I'm strapping that one down at an angle. And it's not a problem because this fits at a nice angle. All right, let's take a peek. All right, we got her all dialed in now. The main power box, we are running off of this box right here, which is plugged in to the 110 plug on my converter in my Jeep. And then we are running the refrigerator right here off of this. You know, I still am experimenting with where this goes. I actually had it laying down for a while before and it worked beautifully, but I felt like water and sand were gonna get inside of there. And then, like I said, it's running right up to this. And you can see the setup here. I'm running a refrigerator. Well, it hasn't come down to temp yet, but I'm running 34 degrees on one side, and then I'm gonna run 68 degrees on the other side. And then that side won't get cold, and I'll use it for dry storage. Right, look, if you haven't seen the video about the original seat delete, you should check that out. I'll leave a link up here probably somewhere. If you're interested in any of the products that we talked about today, or anything that's on my build, check out the description. I'm gonna leave a link to a few of them, and then I'm also gonna leave the link to my Amazon store. All that stuff's in there. Check out my channel. Lots of great videos on things you might be interested in. I appreciate y'all. Y'all take it easy.